Howdy, folks, and welcome once again to the SoundAppraiser podcast. My name's Cary Nightingale. With me, as always, is Kevin Niebrick. Kevin, how you doing tonight?
I'm melting over here.
That's good to hear. So, as Kevin and I were discussing what our content or theme for tonight's episode should be, we landed on nothing of any significance. So instead, we decided to play a game I call YouTube Roulette. Now, what that is, I picked a number, 3 in this case. Kevin picked number 12. What I did was went to Google, typed in list of music genres, and then picked each third one, landed on the blues, hip hop, soul, and punk. And then using Kevin's number of 12, we went to YouTube and typed in punk music. And then the first playlist that we found, we picked the 12th song. And then we did the same thing for soul, picked the 12th song out of the first playlist, and so forth. Now, what we ended with, and this is the nature of the game with YouTube Roulette sometimes, we ended up having 2 cover songs in the repertoire for tonight. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but our emphasis at SoundAppraiser is more on original compositions rather than covers. But I think it will still give us some good, topics, good things to discuss about how you add your own voice and improve from the original version in your cover version. We're going to start with a song called I'll Play the Blues for You. And this is by an artist, Daniel Castro, is released in the late 90s. It's a cover of the original I'll Play the Blues for You was from Albert King, I think around 1972. Kevin, do you want to discuss this song first? Do you want to prosecute and then I'll defend, or vice versa?
Yeah, that sounds great. Let me start here.
Okay.
All right. So I didn't know this song was a cover, unfortunately. So I rated it like an original composition. Having done that, I kind of want to go back and listen to the original. In fact, I heard a snippet and I really liked it. So I'll just go with the rating I gave it, and we'll talk about that. Um, so as far as composition goes, pretty high, mid to high range across the board. The lowest scores were for lyrics and for harmony. Um, I really liked the line "I'll play the blues for you." I thought it was an effective hook. I wish it hit maybe a little deeper the way it's vocalized. Some of the problems I came across in the lyrics, there's a line where he says, "You might run across," and then there's a long pause, "some of your old friends." And I don't know if it was the vocal delivery, but it sounds kind of empty. It sounds kind of simplistic. Some of your old friends, that part of the line, it should, and I think they wanted it to hit more like a punchline, you know? And I feel like it just didn't deliver. I thought the lyrics were somewhat. I don't know. I think that's where I'm going to end with that. But
Okay.
that's what I have to say about that. As far as performance goes, kind of lowish scores. I give them about a 3 out of 6 for accuracy, 4 out of 6 for feel. I really dig the background instrumentation, especially the organ. I would love to hear more diversity in the tempo and the range. I thought it was kind of flat across the board. I feel like they could have been more dynamic with everything. The electronic piano, to me, the sound of it just kind of sounds cheesy, for lack of a better word. Sounds like an old MIDI electronic piano. I don't know why. I don't like that sound. Never have.
Did they
Um,
have MIDI in the 90s?
I don't be knowing. Yeah, I think.
Yes, I think they did.
uh,
Sorry, go ahead.
no, that's a good point. But it sounded like terrible. The guitar solos. There's 3 of them. They're dynamic in volume, but I feel like they were a little simplistic, maybe overly so. I'd love to hear a larger collection of notes kind of squeezed in here and there. Nothing wrong with the solo itself, but like just kind of playing around with the tempo or something would have increased my like for it. It would have been nice to hear it go from lazy to up tempo, lazy back up to up tempo, and then there was a disharmony. Just one little second I heard at 4 minutes in, 4 minutes and 8 seconds, and I heard it mainly from the electronic piano. So that's what the rating I got for that. Production I thought was pretty good. I didn't have anything to say about production. Um, and then finally, as far as appeal goes, emotion kind of missed me a little bit. 12 out of 16, not super low, but just kind of missed me. Innovation, I didn't think it was very innovative. Now that I know that it was a cover of a song, I stick with that 1 out of 4. Repeat listenability for me, it could go either way. I don't think I would listen to it again if it came across the radio, but I might. I thought that this was an homage to the blues that really missed the mark a bit, just kind of off center. It was technically proficient. The band members, the musicians are good, but it was a little reserved. It was a little like they were holding back. I thought it was a very safe song, but just not very adventurous. I think the bones are there. Again, this is if it were an original composition. The bones are there. This could be an incredible song with more intricate solos. If it wasn't all on guitar, if they broke up the solos between the organist and the pianist, and then maybe some more creative background instrumentation, it was all pretty much um, standard. It was hanging in there, nothing too adventurous back there, and maybe just changing a few lines in the lyrics for me would have really brought it up. All right, tell me why I'm wrong, Cary.
Okay. So for this one, for the composition, because it was a cover, and this was something we didn't discover until we were already listening and reviewing in that mode. Because it was a cover, I gave it 1/5 of the available points. So it got a 0.8 out of 4 uh, for the composition because it wasn't composed by the artist in question. And I should actually mention it wasn't just Albert King. Albert King did the original version, but it was written actually by a fellow by the name of Jerry Beach. We always like to give credit where we can. I did rate the original composition as fairly high, point 0.8 out of 1 for the melody, still really low on the lyrics, 0.2 out of 1 for the lyrics, 0.6 out of 1 for the rhythm, and zero point 0.5 out of 1 for the harmony, because it's not terribly complex in the harmony and the rhythm in really any regard, aside from being a showcase for the lead guitars. So the melodies, whether they're sung or played on the guitar, they incorporate a lot of blue notes, and it's played over a pretty standard 16 bar minor blues. I think it's in G minor, this one, progression. So it's a 16 bar blues. There's not a lot of innovation or anything that happens when you're playing over that stock structure. It's like a 2-5-1 in uh, in jazz, and that might be a common thing. This might be a fairly common song in the blues repertoire, like a blues standard, in the same way that Autumn Leaves is a jazz standard, one of the first ones that you play and then you make it your own. But this one, having listened to the Albert King version and then listening to the Daniel Castro version, I didn't feel like there was much that he added that made it his own. And we'll talk a little bit more about that on the next song as well. Uh, but yeah, I completely agree with you, Kevin. The lyrics lacked luster. Uh, some simple rhymes. There's a theme of bonding over this shared world weary pain, but nothing particularly new or insightful about the words. And maybe because it's a 50-year-old song, that's just the way it is. And it did break, the set of lyrics, no matter who wrote them, it did break the fourth commandment of lyric writing, which is breaking the fourth wall, which is self-referencing the fact that you're in a song. I'll play the blues for you, play my guitar. That's my fourth commandment of lyric writing, anyway. I thought the performance was fine in comparison to the original, because it was a little more slickly produced. This version over the Albert King version it doesn't sound as dangerous. Still has a strong feel, and I gave it 1.0 out of 1.2 points for performance, and then same thing for the production. There were a lot of instrumentation that had to be arranged, and the mix was really well balanced. It's almost like they'd heard this song before, and probably and probably fairly similar score from me as from you, Kev, on Appeal. About three-quarters of the way for Emotion for me. 1 out of 4 on Innovation. Repeat listenability for me was okay. It was, I got it 1.4 out of available 1.6. Uh, because lyrics exist here, but the emotional weight is pulled by the lead guitar, and it's a heavy weight. Like, I get it; it's a slow burn, and overall, I liked it. I don't know if I'm going to go seek it out again because I did listen to it a few times for this. So our composite tune score for this song was 6.0 out of 10. And I would say it's best listened to when you find yourself having the same conversation with the same friend for the umpteenth time, with the only difference being a fresh bottle of whiskey to replace the last one,
That's sweet. I like that.
which is kind of like what we do here, except we're probably both drinking coffee instead of whiskey right now.
Yeah. One last thing I'd like to say about this is just that hook, that I'll play the blues for you. It's good. It's a good line. I think that's a decent line. I think the idea of like, come in, hang up your hat, leave your kind of, let me take that pain off your shoulders and I'll play the blues for you. I think that's a sweet message. I think it could have been delivered differently. And maybe it was the way the vocals were delivered. Like, I don't think the line is bad. I think maybe the vocal delivery of the lyrics was not effective enough, not emotive enough. I would love to listen to the original performance real close and do a tune score on it, just because I feel like it probably hits a little bit harder. But yeah, good bones. This could be a really amazing song. I'll bet.
So that is I'll Play the Blues for You. This is the Daniel Castro version. But let's move on to the second song that we found out sort of after the fact, or during the fact, was a cover. And it's called Keep On Lovin' You by a band called Cigarettes After Sex. And this was in the soul genre. And I would say it's probably soulful, but I don't know about you, Kev, but when I hear the term soul, I was thinking more of an R&B feel, like a James Brown, something with a brass section.
As soon as I hit play, I was like, "Is this soul?" I was like, "I'm pretty sure that this has been miscategorized." And also, "Keep on Loving You." We probably should have known, like, or like, "Oh, that sounds so familiar." And we should have stood out to us, but it just didn't.
I don't know. You might have known that it was a cover sooner than I did because I was never on the REO Speedwagon bandwagon, so I was not aware of the original version. But they keep on loving you, we keep on reviewing you. So
All right.
uh, why don't we go ahead and talk about this in a little bit more detail and why it was this one was much different from the original, but not in any valid form of the composition that I could find. Same chords, same melody, same lyrics, uh, just a much slower tempo.
Yeah.
Kev, do you want to go ahead and prosecute first?
Yeah, I'll give you my score first here. So I did know, yeah, a few bars into listening to the song, I was like, "This is a song already," and I couldn't even remember, it was REO Speedwagon, but you've heard it, you know, several times in your life. It's come on any romantic, there's some romantic comedies with this going on in the background. You've heard it before. And the first thing I noticed was, so yeah, I heard the lyrics, and then I was just like, "Oh, this is so slow." That's the first thing that stood out to me. But they did an okay job. I'm just not a fan. Um, but let's look at it a little bit, break it down a little bit more. I give them pretty much middle of the road scores. A little bit higher on lyrics. Again, I rated this like an original composition, but obviously they didn't write the lyrics. it was more of an arrangement kind of thing. And really, as far as arrangement goes, they didn't even really do anything different that I could tell very much from the original composition. If anything, they kind of dumbed it down and is a little bit flatter. But as far as composition goes, middle scores across the board. I don't know what it is about. I don't even like the original song, to be honest. I don't know what it is because we didn't. I didn't review it specifically on its own, and it's not the lyrics. I don't think there's any. I don't think I dislike the lyrics of the original song either. I think it's just something about the melody and especially around the hooks where it goes up in register. I'm not sure. Not sure exactly what I don't like about it. The chorus, especially, is not my favorite. It sounds boring to me for whatever reason. Not sure what to change here. Yeah, I'm just gonna leave it at. I'm gonna leave it out because I don't really know. I didn't review it, so I don't know. For this one, the performance, I thought I gave him lower scores than typical. 4 out of 6. That's still not bad. The vocalist has a very pretty voice. The original, what I like about the original, and I'm comparing and contrasting, unfortunately, because I can't get the other one out of my head. But the original at least has exciting dynamic changes. It goes up in volume, it hits you hard, and he's singing. He's just doing it. But in this one, I felt like the solo. There's a little tiny solo in there for a second. It's very boring. It's just half notes. They just kind of dropped out everything else and just left that in, and then it just kind of stops at the end abruptly, which I thought was strange. The arrangement and production across the board, just because it sounded clean. There's nothing I disliked about the sound itself. And then as far as appeal goes, it's hard to tell whether I'm rating this song or the other song. As far as emotion goes, it's very muted, middle of the road for this song for sure. For this cover, innovation, I gave it a 1 simply because it's a cover of a song. They didn't really do anything different. Repeat listenability on this one, same as about an 8. Give it middle of the road score. I'm not a fan of the original, so I don't know that I would like this one. I think I might like this one just a little bit more, just because I don't know the vocals were nice, the mood was good. It was still kind of flat, and it wasn't as dynamic as the original performance. I love covers that depart from the original. I felt like there was very little work done here. As far as like covers that really go above and beyond, I think the like maybe not the gold standard, but a really fine example would be Gary Jules' cover of Mad World, which I thought was an excellent reimagining of a piece. And I think that's what you should strive for, is to make it sound different, make it your own. If you're going to cover a tune, how did it hit you, Cary?
So I agree with you about taking an original song and making it your own. I think that's probably the biggest moral of this story that we could convey upon our audience. I'll talk about this in the same way we do for anything we give a tune score. So, from a composition standpoint, because it's a cover and it does not depart really at all in any regard that I could detect, other than tempo, zero point 0.2 out of 1 across the board for the melody, lyrics, rhythm, and harmony. If I were rating the original and just based on the composition, that would be 7.566 for me. So just slightly different from how you would rate it, Kevin. It's a slow burn. Again, it does feel, I think, a little more soulful. Still not necessarily soul, but a little more soulful than the original. I thought the performance was fine. It was accurate. It had feel, even though it was sort of a lazy feel to it. And the production, I will say about the production, the mix on this version, on the cover version, was a little unconventional because you had the guitar, which may have been a baritone guitar, but a lot of it was played very low on the neck. That was all the way to the left in the mix, and then the vocals and the keyboards were slightly to the right. So it's just maybe a little off kilter, but it worked for me. Unconventional does not mean bad, and conventional does not necessarily mean good either. As far as the overall appeal, I did rate this much higher than you did, Kevin, because I think for being in this genre, whatever genre it is, whether it's soul, whether it's chill hop, or who knows what it is, I did think it vibed really well. So I gave it a zero point 0.1 out of zero point 0.4 for innovation, and then 1.3 out of 1.6 for each of emotion and repeat listenability. But coming back to your point about, how does your cover version depart from the original? There are things that are just bad about the song, about the composition, whether it's the original or the cover.
Yeah.
And specifically, it's in the lyrics. There's nothing offensive about the chord sequence or about the melody. In fact, the melody is very pretty, but the lyrics, there's something about a snake and you're lying in the grass, coiled up and hissing. So the singer is comparing a cheating partner to a snake, and then going on to say, so that's bad enough. That's just a weird comparison to make. The forced rhyme of don't want to sleep, just want to keep, that could have been changed. I'm in too deep. I just want to keep on loving you. That wouldn't have been too dramatic of a departure, but it could have lifted the song, in my opinion, given a little greater emotional force. And at the end of the day, if your partner's cheating on you, you got to move on, man. Don't keep on loving something that hurts you. It's the scorpion and the frog all over again. That would have been a more apt analogy than the snake in the grass.
Where were you 50 years ago when they wrote
The
this
cheating,
song?
the cheating serpent. But ultimately, I will say, if I were given the choice of taking either this version of Keep On Loving You by Cigarettes After Sex or the original version by REO Speedwagon to a desert island, I would probably take a flare gun.
Nice.
But if that weren't an option, I would definitely take the Cigarettes After Sex version. I would say it's best listened to when you refuse to accept the demise of a romantic relationship or realize how toxic it really was. And the final tune score, the composite tune score, was 5.6 out of 10 for
Yeah.
this version.
I I agree with you on all that. And you know what? It's funny, like looking at the lyrics. I don't know if I did a deep dive on the lyrics for this one, but just the mood of the song in the cover that we heard, I like the mood better in the cover that we listened to. But I really like the dynamic volume changes and crescendos and decrescendos of the original piece. And I feel like if you put them together, if you took the best parts of both those songs and smashed them together, you might come out with something that even sounds better than both of them combined. I feel like they could have taken some more elements from the original and made this a much better piece.
That that's possible. We'll never know, will we?
Unless we hear
Because this is the version that was done. I mean, you and I, we could put together a band and we could cover it in a way that Frankenstein's together the best of both worlds. But what we'll end up with is still Frankenstein's monster,
it.
right?
Yeah, that's fair.
Uh, it it might lead to a higher tune score, but keep in mind, at least for composition, but keep in mind that the appeal of this track, because it is such a slow burn, is that you don't have a lot of distracting volume dynamics or a really high musicianship caliber guitar solo.
Yeah.
It is different in that way, and that contributes to the mood or the atmosphere. And I would say, in probably a positive way, and I think you would agree. I don't know. We can still create Frankenstein's monster. Let us know in the comments below if you want us to cover this song and make it even better.
Please
We
no.
won't. We won't. So I think that's a good moral to end this section on, or this segment. If you're gonna make a cover, one, make a good choice about which song you're going to cover, and two, be critical enough about the weak points of the original song that you can incorporate changes and improvements to your version. Make it your own and make it better.
Agreed.